has decided to act over the weekend.
Prince Andrew's security has been funded privately by Charles after he lost.
Is it time that we actually stop paying for royal security full stop? Is it right that taxpayers fund the security of everyone from Queen Camilla to Prince William? Good morning, Sarah. How are you?
Morning. Members of the royal family, as I say, the Prince and Princess of Wales, the people aren't going to have malign intent. Yes. They
billionaires, aren't they? I mean, they could afford. Isn't Prince William a billionaire?
They need to.
That we do pay for police protection for him. So I mean, he's not a good example. But in terms of what they cost, just look, the actual figure in terms of their security never gets disclosed, as I say, and that is for but disclosed, as I say, and that is for that is for their protection, and that's a decision that the Home Office has taken. But of course they do. It's the King, and they generate, I mean, 80% of the income that they generate goes and Princess Catherine, they do deserve to have security.
No. You mean
Right. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex, they've just finished.
Sussex said that the couple's daughter Lilibet has finally found her voice at the age of 3.
Well, speaking at a panel event, Meghan said she was so proud that her daughter feels empowered.
Well, joining us now is GB News Royal correspondent Cameron Walker. Cameron, thank you very much for joining us. Good morning to you. So how successful, on a scale of 1 to 10, did that trip to Colombia appear to be?
Well, Nana, I think it depends who you ask, to be honest. I mean, usually at this point for a foreign royal tour, I would be giving you the highlights and the lowlights, and then you guys probably make up your mind. To be honest, I'm finding it quite difficult to do that. The reason being is there was very limited independent coverage of the trip. There was one pool journalist, what we call a pool journalist, permitted to cover the royal couple on their visit, and then that kind of information would be shared with all the other journalists, which perhaps is to be expected, but it was very brief. There wasn't much in the independence, perhaps. And also the videos and the photographs we were getting from the Duke and Duchess of Sussex's team were very glossy. Meghan looked amazing. Harry looked amazing as well. All smiles, all lovely. But all the footage, as you might be able to hear, or not hear, I should say, was mute. So you couldn't hear a lot about what Prince Harry or indeed Meghan was saying, and it was all very edited. But given that, of course, it is their right, because they are no longer working members of the royal family, so they can do a royal tour or not royal tour, whichever way you want to look at it, as they please. If they don't want to share all the footage with us, so be it. However, the question then is, what is their aim? And arguably the biggest news line for the whole 4-day tour was Prince Harry appearing to weigh in on the UK riots, where he says what happens online within a matter of minutes transfers to the streets. That is referring, of course, to online misinformation, a key theme of their trip. But that quote was picked up by another camera. It wasn't picked up by Harry and Meghan's camera, and it certainly wasn't included in the pool copy from the journalist accredited to cover their trip. But of course, I think that was probably one of their biggest successes for highlighting the dangers of online misinformation. They visited several schools. You can see them visiting one of the schools here on your screens, talking about the dangers of online misinformation when it comes to children. They also had their own research from Archworld, their foundation as well, talking about the use of social media in Latin America. More people are using social media more than the global average. But I asked for details on that particular research and was not given it. So make of that what you will. But as you said in your link there, Meghan also attended an Afro-Women panel where she talks about female empowerment, another huge theme of the trip, talking about her daughter, Princess Elizabeth, finding her voice, and also said that it's up to the men, up to young boys to be taught to listen to women as well. So perhaps another key theme for that. And Prince Harry got an Invictus engagement into his military veterans, a Paralympic style competition.
I also want to ask you about a report that I've seen in a couple of the papers this morning that Prince William would not want Harry at his coronation. Now, they're just reports and there's no named source. But given the fact that Prince William has been focusing so much on his father, who's been ill, his wife, who's been ill, looking after his kids, that might not come as a huge surprise. And obviously, there's no imminent coronation. But it seems to be, there's no reconciliation on the horizon between the brothers.
Yeah, this was a friend of Prince William reportedly speaking to the Sunday Times yesterday, because Prince Harry turns 40 years old in a couple of weeks. And a key theme of that particular article was that there is really not much of a relationship between Prince William and Harry. I mean, I know whenever I speak to people close to Prince William, the barriers go up when I mention his brother, the Duke of Sussex. They're not on speaking terms. It's understood the last time they did speak was at the Queen's funeral back in September 2022. And then, albeit it was very, very brief indeed. And as you say, Isabel, I think this is just a sense of Prince William having other priorities. The King is still receiving cancer treatment. The Princess of Wales, very similar situation. He has 3 young children to think about. He's the heir to the throne. To be honest, Prince Harry's just not a priority for him, which perhaps is very sad. But I suppose we'll just have to wait and see if time plays a part in any kind of reconciliation between the 2 brothers.
Okay. All right, Cameron Walker, thank you very much. Really good to talk to you. Yeah. What are your thoughts on this? Meghan Markle, Prince Harry?
I would say I totally understand why William and Kate have distanced themselves. That's all I would put in there, really. I'd probably do the same. Given what's happened. And I also find it a bit strange, as Chris Akabusi was saying, a couple who wanted to get away to live away from the scrutiny of the cameras, then doing so much on camera doesn't really add up. I don't understand what their problem was with the royal family.
Tech crime. Keep your
speaking of
No,
it feels like you'd have to sort of have a shower for about 3 days afterwards to get rid of.
no, it's not. I'm going to have to vote no on that one. But you're absolutely right. Harry and Meghan back from Colombia, headed back to the United States after their 4-day trip. This was a private trip, but it very much looked like a royal tour. although I'd argue that a royal tour allows media to attend, Harry and Meghan handpicked one individual from the fashion magazine Harper's Bazaar that gave the media a rundown at the end of every event, distributed that information. But with the priority being on Meghan Markle's fashion, what she wore.
Yes.
So I think if you are a cynical person, you're looking at this thinking, was this a PR exercise for not only the Sussexes, but this vice president who has been challenged a lot lately and, is not very much liked in her own country.
No, and an awful lot of the sort of the bystanders outside who were being asked about Harry and Meghan, we didn't really see them because they were whisked in and out of, sort of underground car parks, and nobody really saw them in public unless they were at a function. People were going, we're not sure who these people are. We don't even know why they're here. And nobody could really explain it. And it seems that we now know why Harry went there, because he was guarded by 3,000 troops, which is presumably what he expects every time he comes to London.
3,000 police, snipers, and a bioterror van that followed the couple. My favorite quote from that revelation was, despite barely anyone turning up to see them, it was similar to a presidential presence with 14 cars and police convoy. There were Black Hawk helicopters circling drones in the sky above their events, and there was a briefcase that everybody was debating, that a man was constantly holding a briefcase over them that was supposed to protect them. But you're right when you say that a lot of people aren't familiar with these people. According to the Telegraph, I believe it was, one of the VIPs selected to perform for them said, "Who is Meghan?"
Right.
So even the people that were selected to entertain them had no clue who they were.
I know, it's very weird, isn't it? And a big piece in the Sunday Times this weekend, I don't know if you had a chance to read it, about, sort of Harry at 40, in which it was revealed that Prince William has apparently told friends that he wouldn't even invite his brother, Harry, to his coronation when he becomes king.
Yeah, this is a really good story. I think it's something like they call Prince Harry an angry boy, one of his friends. But it's titled Prince Harry at 40. All he does is spend time looking back.
Yeah.
One of the sources claimed that Harry desperately wants to be admired like the Prince and Princess of Wales, William and Catherine. And he misses being in Britain, because who is he while he's not in Britain? What is he accomplishing? What is his purpose? And I think it's a good reflection on where he's at in his life right now. You watched him in his element on this trip to Colombia, because that's all he knows how to do.
Yeah.
And I think he's outgrown the little boy lost. We are no longer attracted to that character. So when he's shimmying and having fun and goofing off with some of these people, like we thought that was super cute when he was in his 20s. But as a 40-year-old man who's been so vindictive and cruel to his elderly grandparents, his elderly father, two individuals in his family battling cancer, the charm is lost, and we are over it.
Yes, I think that's a very, very good way to describe it. Final word on Prince Andrew, piece in the Mail today saying he could be out of the Royal Lodge by October. And the King has already scrapped his security team of 10. I mean, some might say he doesn't need any security. He doesn't really leave Windsor Great Park, does he?
Well, I wonder, Mike, if this is because we sit on TV and argue that it's kind of ridiculous for the palace to continue to pay for Prince Andrew's security and not Prince Harry's. And I do not think we need to pay. Anybody should pay for Prince Harry's security. That was the deal. If he was leaving, he was going to lose his security. But it's not a great reflection that Prince Andrew continues to be taken care of. Yes, I think they want to boot him out. They want him in Frogmore. But I also think that they realize that it's not a good look to continue to pay for his security when Prince Harry is moaning and groaning on international television about how he feels so unsafe in his father's country.
Yeah, I know. It is quite remarkable, isn't it? Incredible stuff. Great to talk to you, Kinsey, as ever. Thank you very much indeed. Kinsey Schofield there, royal commentator, reporting into us from the hills of Hollywood.
Vaunted non-royal royal tour of Colombia. a tour which follows hot on the heels of their non-royal royal tour to Nigeria. Now, while the Nigerian tour did face some criticism, it did appear to be a well put together schedule of events. The Colombian tour, however, has looked less refined, more contrived, and frankly, a bit rudderless. Here's a look.
I do believe all of us agree, despite whatever disparities there are throughout the world, no one contests the fact that we want to keep our children safe.
Be more responsible and take more accountability for spotting these things.
Honestly, more of the same, and it looks like a platform for personalities, but without a purpose and without a clear outcome. One thing, though, which does continue to make me feel uncomfortable is the conflation between royalty and celebrity, and how that can potentially create issues or misunderstandings outside the Anglosphere. Now, I'll discuss this more in detail later with Esther Kraku, but for now, it's been reported in the UK Telegraph that residents of Colombia's first free town, San Basilio, suggested to Prince Harry that he apologise on behalf of the royal family for the slave trade. One resident is quoted as saying, "His ancestors made our ancestors go through terrible times, and he can make good faith and repent to show that they don't agree with what happened before." Now, if my memory serves me correctly, I'm pretty sure the British were at the forefront of abolishing the slave trade. Is that not good faith enough? Additionally, Colombia's vice president is one of the leading voices calling for reparations for the slave trade and has set up a national commission to repair the historical debt owed. Now, I thought this tour was meant to be about the Invictus Games. How on earth was it allowed to veer off on a wild tangent about colonialism, slavery, and apologies for past wrongs? Remember, Harry isn't a working royal, and he's best steering clear of these issues, lest his foot enter his mouth. The blurring of the lines can only lead to misunderstanding and angst, and it will likely only create issues both within the family and externally.
What do you think will be the biggest crisis facing the royal family in the next 10 years?
I just think it's going to be something completely unexpected because have been. I think when I think back to when I started covering the royals, which was like 2010 when William and Kate got engaged, and it was just celebration, celebration after celebration of weddings, babies, Queen Diamond Jubilee, longest reigning monarch, 90th birthday, all of those things. And then it completely changed. The story completely changed, and the focus was on Andrew, and the focus was on Harry and Meghan and how unhappy they were. And I mean, the Andrew thing had been rumbling along for a long time, yes, but I don't think I would have seen then that it would have come to the head that it did many years later, and he's had to step down. And same with Harry and Meghan, I would never have seen that coming. But when they became engaged, and it was just, when Harry would say sort of things, I will, for example, when they issued that statement at the end of their South Africa tour, that was a huge deal because they were really speaking in really strong terms about how they felt about things. And at the time, that was big because we hadn't heard this insight. And then when you look now at how much insight we've had into everything, books, would never ever have been ever. So I think obviously it will be unpredictable.
We've got to be prepared for, as royal journalists, you've got to be prepared for anything. I mean, this year, we thought this year would be this big.
I am here again from Gaza. The situation in Rafah is very
a year of peace, of travel, you know, we have foreign tours, and it'd be nice for, you know, a calm year. And then we had the King and the Princess of Wales come up, you know,
at the start of this year. Again, another,
yeah,
exactly. It was completely out of the blue. No one was expecting to get either of those announcements.
What do you think Harry and Meghan are hoping to get out of this trip to Colombia?
Well, I think that what I don't really understand is how this fits into their long-term purpose and the long-term purpose of Archewell. I think in a short term, you can see that there's going to be a huge amount of attention on this tour, and probably they feel that they want to highlight these areas that they've said, women's empowerment and the military community, and it all sounds, you know, like the intention is very positive. And I think they'll be hoping that they can shine a light on the things that they think are important. But as I said, if they haven't, how much independent control have they had over this program, and how much knowledge do they have of the already, or have they been given independently of the areas and the projects that they're visiting? I don't get the long-term thing. I don't get that. You know, my personal feeling. Sorry, just to jump in, but I always felt that they work best when it's very clear what they're doing, and I think Invictus is the strongest example of that. People really understand what it is, what it stands for. It's an event as well as a community. And when they go out there and talk about Invictus, it feels very meaningful and very powerful, and it resonates with everyone. And I feel that they should be focusing, I mean, it's just my opinion, you know,
apparently they were invited off the back of their Netflix series, but the topic of colonialism came up, as did the suggestion that Harry should apologise for the slave trade. Amongst other things, doesn't this just highlight the difficulty with non-royal royal tours?
Well, yes, and unfortunately, anyone with an ounce of common sense could have seen this coming from a mile away. We remember when David Cameron went to Jamaica, I believe it was sometime in 2010, and was sort of ambushed by the then Jamaican Prime Minister, who asked for an apology and for reparations, and he expertly sort of diffused that situation, because obviously he is a politician and he's trained to in some form of crisis management. And in the same way, you know, King Charles has many times in his role as Prince of Wales been asked to either apologise for slavery and for the sins of the British Empire, or pay reparations. We've seen similar calls with the Prince and Princess of Wales when they did their Caribbean tour a few years ago. So this is something that anyone who knows anything about royal tours knows that it's a likelihood or a risk that many working royals could face. Now, unfortunately, Prince Harry and Meghan have sort of found themselves in a situation where they're being used as pawns, basically. You mentioned earlier that this tour of Colombia that they've been doing, it seems a bit rudderless and seems a bit pointless, and the reality is it is. The vice president of Colombia invited them, she says, over a year ago after watching them on a Netflix series, and you have many Colombians asking what is the point? You know, we're spending not an inconsequential amount of money hosting these two, not to any actual benefits to the country. This isn't an actual royal tour. There's no diplomatic benefits. It's kind of just, you know, she's seeing a shiny tour on TV and having the resources to get it. And unfortunately, Harry and Meghan, being none the wiser, they've gone and sort of under the auspices of talking to veterans and talking to people that have Colombian athletes that have competed in the Invictus Games, and going to children's charities and talking about online safety and all of that. But we're really not talking about that, because the reality is the vice president knew what she was doing. She's using this couple as a distraction from her own sort of domestic politics woes, and it's becoming clearer and clearer, and you can see the lack of sort of self-awareness on Harry and Meghan's part, because they're just smiling and doing what they think they do best. But without the cover of the royal family, without an actual plan, without a purpose to this visit, they've now been roped into a situation which is quite uncomfortable. You know, you had Prince Harry a few years ago talking about the fact that the Commonwealth, for example, is Empire 2.0, and having these kind of quite scathing criticisms of the royal family, but unfortunately he's one of the main beneficiaries of the royal family and its entire history. For some reason, even though he called the Commonwealth the Commonwealth Empire 2.0 and has had some significant criticisms of the institution, he insists on giving his children their royal titles. Why would he do that if he feels so strongly about the institution? He seemed to take in a very kind of unique stance that absolves him of any sort of responsibility, but also makes him feel like he's some sort of do-gooder and that he's actually changing the world in some way or another. And unfortunately, his wife is just happy to be along for the ride. So for many of us, just looking out from the outside, and it's very clear that they're just being used in this tour. And if they're going to make this kind of their MO moving forward, just visiting countries around the world where they've been invited and are none the wiser to the political implications of it, then they're not going to be doing themselves any favors. And unfortunately, we're seeing that kind of unfold now. No one is actually talking about what they went there to do. They're just talking about what they represent and how easy it is to inject them into a conversation that I'm sure is completely out of their own depth.
And much like the interview that they did the other week, they're in Columbus speaking about online misinformation. And while doing that, Harry took a swipe at Elon Musk. What did he have to say? And is there anything in this?
Yeah, so he said that I suspect it was referencing the Southport protest that we've been seeing in the UK over the last couple of weeks. He said that whatever is said online is reflected in the streets. Again, this is another thing that clearly shows Prince Harry is out of his depth. And when you live in an echo chamber, it's really easy to make these sorts of mistakes and really not see the kind of wider implications. He clearly has very little knowledge of previous riots in the UK that were started under similar sort of circumstances and because of the underlying social tensions and the lack of social cohesion. So if we cast our mind back to the 2005 Birmingham riots, those were started based off a rumor, an unsubstantiated rumor that a Black Caribbean girl was gang raped by British men of South Asian heritage, Pakistani heritage to be more precise. And those rumors were enough to spark 2 days of riots and were linked to the deaths of 2 men and caused substantial property damage. And in the wake of that, no one was talking about social media or anything like that because this was in the era before social media. But the conversation around social cohesion came back into the forefront. In the same way, the 2011 London riots, it was sparked by the death of a local black man in North London by a police officer, which was later established to be lawful. But this alone caused 5 days of riots, over £200 million worth of property damage. You had the police chief at the time, who was of Nigerian heritage, being called all sorts of racial slurs, was called a murderer and all of that. And these are the kinds of things that happen when there's underlying social issues and so that lack of social cohesion. But of course, Prince Harry, who doesn't live in deprived communities in the UK, who has no idea how people in those communities live, who has no understanding of social integration and social cohesion and lack of trust in the police and all these other things, will say, yes, it's because of misinformation online. The riots that started across the UK were actually quite largely spontaneous, and they were sparked by the tragic death of those 3 girls at a Taylor Swift dance class. Yes, there was misinformation that the individual or the alleged perpetrator was someone who came across illegally on a small boat. But as a result of knife crime, he has no understanding of the social issues that are racking the UK, and yet he feels the need to parade around the world talking about misinformation and protecting our children without actually any self-awareness and understanding that he and his children are probably the most privileged people on the planet, and that a lot of the things that he comments on are really out of his depth.
And I've just got a bit over a minute left. The Democrats, they start their national convention tomorrow. Apparently it's been suggested that Meghan not attend as her selling power, and to quote, is considered to be at rock bottom. Well, look, we know she's interested in politics. What's your view on this?
existent. The reality is, the Democrats are not new to having celebrity endorsements, and they tend to be the more Hollywood friendly of the two parties. But even then, Meghan really hasn't very little to offer. We know her sort of slight foray into the world of politics wasn't received very well. She tried to lobby Congress over a bill for child safety, but online. But that's about the extent to which sort of her political interests have actually been reciprocated well. The reality is, there's very little value there. She's just a very privileged woman that married an extremely privileged man that seemed to talk about things that they really have no intricate understanding of. And so it might actually end up harming Kamala Harris to be surrounded by these privileged, wealthy celebrities who don't live the lives of average Americans to any degree whatsoever.
And just one last thing, I've still got a little bit of time left. Now, we've spoken several times about the Sussex's revolving door of staff and bullying allegations. They won't go away. I've got about 30 seconds. What's the latest?
So their latest sort of chief of staff that they hired, who was this sort of PR man extraordinaire, has left the company after 3 months. Now, the couple have said that it was a trial period and that they mutually decided to part ways because it wasn't, they weren't a good fit for each other. But this is one of many staff members that have left the Archewell Foundation since its inception. And it's indicating that there's trouble there, that the couple really have no experience of managing anyone, of managing businesses, of really understanding how to put together a team and make it work. And it indicates that the couple are quite rudderless and really not very experienced in doing anything outside of sort of being royal smiley faces. And they're seeing those challenges come to light outside of the royal family more than ever.
Thank you very much. Esther Kraku, thank you for joining us. Thank you for your insights.
Love that Metallica song that says, careful what you wish, careful what you say, because you may regret it or you might as well get it. And yes, I wish for Meghan to speak in Spanish because I wanted to, just check her Spanish, which is so fluent, right? But at the same time, in this case, what I'm going to do is to make an absolutely first reaction to this. I said it would be fun if I just turn on the camera. I haven't listened to this. This is the clip that people are sharing of Meghan speaking Spanish. I have not heard it.
Of your energy body. It's actually about shifting.
And I will react to it like in this video with the camera on. I have something in my eye. I don't know where it is, but this is absolutely unscripted. And it's a historic moment because Meghan is going to speak my language and you get to see my first reaction to this, like my raw, completely unedited reaction to this. So let's play. I think we have the sound. I think we have everything. Let me make a test play here to make sure. Yeah, there's sound. So let's do this.
Hola. Ahí muy buenas tardes. Me gustaría empezar en español. porque estamos en su país, mi marido y yo, y puedo sentir este abrazo de Colombia y es increíble. Entonces, gracias, muchas gracias, porque la cultura, la historia, todo estaba como un sueño, este viaje. Y perdona si mi español no está perfecto, porque yo aprendí hace 20 años en Argentina, pero estoy tratando, porque acá puedo sentir esta comunidad y este es el sentimiento que es lo mejor del mundo ahora. Entonces, gracias, vicepresidenta, mi amiga. Muchas gracias.
Okay, one thing. I'm going to say my first reaction.
Y bueno, ahora en inglés.
Ahora en inglés. All right, very good. My first reaction. Okay, what is that accent? Okay, because you know that there's something about. Let me pause here. You know that there's something about Spanish. We have tons of accents. If you are from Mexico or Venezuela or Spain, every country has at least 5 or 6 very distinct areas of accents. And she claims that she learned in Argentina. She said, I'm going to replay that afterwards. But I don't hear any of the Argentinian inflection and modulation in her accent, like at all. It's like if you learn English in London or you learn English in California, it's going to sound different. Or if you learn English in Vancouver or learn English in Sydney, it's going to be different. And you're going to notice, okay, you learn in this place. Her Spanish doesn't sound Argentinian at all. And I know Argentinian accent. Like there's no inflection. There's maybe at some point I can speak a bit of Argentinian and you can get the feeling of it. Most of you are watching me from English-speaking countries, and maybe you will not see hear the difference. But this is not Argentinian at all. At all, it is not. Argentina has a nice ring to it. It's a very musical accent. So this is very dry in terms of Spanish. This sounds memorized, and it has the same intonation all the time. There's another way that we can find out where did Megan really get this from, or where did Megan learn this Spanish, which is okay-ish. There's one syllable, there's one letter that she said. I'm going to try to go back to that. Again, this is the first time I'm listening to this. And I think it was through the middle. I'm going to play this part again.
Es increíble. Entonces, gracias, muchas gracias, porque la cultura, la historia, todo estaba como un sueño, este viaje. Y perdona si mi español no está perfecto, porque yo aprendí hace 20 años.
Okay, she says, porque yo aprendí hace 20 años. When she says hace, when she says hace, that's one clue.
Perfecto, porque yo aprendí hace 20.
When she says hace, that word, that little sound of the C in HACE, hace. There are two ways of saying that word. You either say hace or you say hace. And in Spain, you're going to say hace. You're going to do that with your tongue and your teeth. And that's exactly what she's doing with that with that little word in there. She's saying "hace." There's this sound which is not from Argentina. It's not from Latin America. That is from Spain. And any of my Spanish-speaking rogues can confirm this. Let's hear it again.
Perdona si mi español no está perfecto, porque yo aprendí hace 20 años en Argentina.
Maybe she's not really clear what Argentina is, but again.
Perfecto, porque yo aprendí hace 20 años.
Yeah, I hear that hace. That sound is only from Spain. Some parts of Spain, most of Spain does it, but I don't recall any other Latin American country. In the rest of Latin America, we say hace without that inflection. And there's another thing that she does. It's like these words.
Es increíble.
That es increíble. That has a slight. Correct me if I'm wrong. My Spanish-speaking rogues sounds like Puerto Rican. Sounds more like Puerto Rican.
Es increíble.
Yeah, it's to me sounds Puerto Rican. Maybe you could say another country of the Caribbean. Maybe could say maybe not. I don't think that Dominican, but no, none of this is Argentinian accent. And some of you are saying, well, she could have practiced this. I think that if she practiced this, she could have done a better job. Maybe she practiced something that doesn't sound that well, or I think that is too much work, right? And we know that the Duchess doesn't like to work that much. But I'm going to give this a second. I'm going to give this a second pass, just to be fair, and try to listen again if I miss something.
Hola. Ahí muy buenas tardes. Me gustaría empezar en español. Porque estamos en su país, mi marido y yo, y puedo sentir este abrazo de Colombia. Y es increíble.
She also says, well, marido is, that would be interesting. That when you say my husband, you can say marido or esposo. It depends on the country, but that is a bit more difficult to pinpoint.
Entonces, gracias, muchas gracias, porque la cultura, la historia, todo estaba como un sueño, este viaje. Y perdona si mi español no está perfecto, porque yo aprendí hace 20 años en Argentina, pero estoy tratando, porque acá puedo sentir esta comunidad. Y este es el sentimiento.
KCC Supermarket, pinakabarato ang siguristang miss sa KCC Supermarket lang bumili kung saan ang mga bilihin.
Always craving for new challenges. Good thing.
Que es lo mejor del mundo ahora. Entonces, gracias, vicepresidenta, mi amiga. Muchas gracias.
Okay, well, yes, it sounds like she's really trying to, well, obviously was previously rehearsed, but my question is, she's got some mistakes in terms of, you know that Spanish is a mess with gender, not that kind of mess that you're thinking, but the gender of the nouns. So you have articles and nouns, and you have to fix to fit the article to the noun in the correct gender to speak properly. And she's making a couple mistakes in there. I'm going to now try to do some kind of a live translation of this, because I'm just realizing, because of the reaction, that if you speak English and like, I don't know, like 90% of you, Rogue, is speaking English and maybe you don't understand Spanish, you haven't understood what the Duchess has said. I'm going to translate her right now, part by part.
Ahí muy buenas tardes.
Well, good afternoon.
Me gustaría empezar en español.
I would like to start in Spanish. Again, I'm trying to pinpoint the kind of accent that she's doing. It's so inflectionless. That is, it's a bit suspicious. It's like she learned with Duolingo or something like that.
Porque estamos en su país.
Because we are in your country. She's using su país is the formal way of addressing. And it's a generic way to say your country as in one single person, or your country as many people. Things of Spanish. Doing well so far.
Mi marido y yo.
My husband and I.
Y puedo sentir este abrazo de Colombia.
And I can feel this hug of Colombia, and that's the first little mistake that she does with the article.
Este abrazo y puedo sentir este abrazo de Colombia.
No, I'm mistaken. That she said that right.
Es increíble. Entonces,
it's amazing.
Gracias, muchas gracias, porque la cultura, la historia.
Many thanks, because the culture, the history, she makes a little mistake in there. She uses the wrong article. We'll give it a pass. Learning Spanish is really difficult. That is for anybody. If you're learning Spanish, my hat is off to you, because Spanish is hard as nails.
Todo estaba como un sueño.
Everything was like a dream. She's struggling with the verb a bit. Todo estaba como un sueño. It's like saying everything was, but she's using the wrong how to say this, the wrong way of using the verb. Todo era como un sueño, todo es como un sueño is the proper way of saying what she wants to say.
Este viaje.
In this trip.
Y perdona si mi español no está perfecto, porque.
Y perdona si mi español no está perfecto, and forgive me if my Spanish is not that perfect. And perdona is to, when you address one single person, you should say perdonen, like you're addressing many people. Again, the nuances of speech. It's like, well, when I'm speaking German, I speak German just like this. It's something that, again, Spanish is hard.
Yo aprendí hace 20 años en Argentina.
I learned 20 years ago in Argentina, but sounds like Duolingo.
Pero estoy tratando, porque acá puedo sentir este.
But I'm trying, because here I can feel this
comunidad.
This community, este comunidad, again, missing the gender, the correct gender. That is a mess. We'll give her a pass either way. I have to be like kind to Megan. She's really trying. She's really trying to speak Spanish. You go, Megan, but it's not like you brag about something and then you do this. It's kind of building all that hype for this. It's kind of a disappointment.
Y este es el sentimiento.
And this is the feeling.
Que es lo mejor del mundo ahora. Entonces,
which is the best of the world right now.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Vicepresidenta.
She mixes English with Spanish. I think that I do as well. Gracias, Vicepresidenta. Vice is in English. We should be vicepresidenta. Again, mistake that I do also.
Mi amiga.
My friend.
Muchas gracias.
Oh, this is interesting. That last thank you, or many thanks.
Muchas gracias.
It's interesting because I told you that she had this sort of that word a minute ago, but if that was the case, she should do it again on that gracias. She should say gracias, right? It's not like you're gonna some C's and you're not gonna some other C's. That doesn't work like that. You're gonna all of them.
Muchas gracias. Muchas gracias.
I don't know. I'm absolutely feeling a Puerto Rican, a very subtle Puerto Rican accent in there.
Y bueno, ahora en inglés.
Okay, my guess is that she tried to really improvise it. I don't understand how. You know that we have analyzed Meghan a couple times, and it's like we know the controlling side of Meghan. We also know the overconfident side of Meghan. I think we are looking at the overconfident side of Meghan. Said, "I can just wing it," and she is winging it with well, she made herself understood, but again, for all that she said that she learned Spanish, being Spanish as hard as I'm telling you, this is a bit odd. You have a mix of accents. The more that I hear is Puerto Rican, a bit of Spanish from Spain as well. So it's a bit of a mess. But again, this is my first reaction to this. I don't know what would I be saying today.